Welcome, everybody, to What's Your Story, Episode 2. I'm so excited that you have decided to join me tonight for the second episode of What's Your Story, a space where we get to hear the compelling journeys and stories of individuals who are brave enough to come on here and share so that we can learn how to know, own, and share our own stories. Listen, I'm just so excited. First of all, I get to have this opportunity to do something that's so meaningful on this day and my birthday with What's Your Story. So if you are here, go ahead and let me know you're here. Say hi. Would love to connect with you in the chat. But last week, I just need to say that I am still sitting in what happened last week. It was such a powerful story. So many lessons learned, so many conversations that came out of it. And I just want to thank you, especially those of you who were here listening, participating. One of the comments last week was, man, this is one of the most supportive chats I have ever been in. And listen, I am so thankful for you guys for creating that safe space. And that is exactly what the chat is. So just a reminder. Thank you guys. Yes. Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for the birthday love. But I just want to remind you, if this is your first time tuning in, the chat is a safe space. And what does that mean? That means that it is a judgment-free zone. There are people who are taking the step towards doing something that is extremely difficult. And your role as you're watching is to be an encourager, is to empower, is to share with each other and lift one another up. And so those are my expectations for you in the chat. And so we'll be connecting as we go through the show today. Now, I didn't mention this last time earlier, so I wanted to do it today, right now. If, as we're sharing the story and you're hearing whatever you're hearing, if you have a question, either for myself or for the people that are going to be sharing, go ahead and leave that in the comments. And at the end, we'll go ahead and try to address as many questions as possible. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now, yes, thank you, Anne. Week 2, I am so excited. So anyway, guys, thank you for the birthday love. I'm so glad you are here. I'm going to start. Last week, I let you know that every single week, I wanted to honor one of you guys. I wanted to celebrate one of you guys for taking the step towards sharing your story. And so this week, and let me just tell you that if you or someone who's watching, if you have used your story to help someone else, I want to know about it. So go ahead and DM me, send me a direct message with your story, and I will go ahead and highlight you on the show. It can be anonymous or I can say your name, but I want to just celebrate the act of bravery towards facing your fear and owning your story. And so today's highlight is exactly that. After last week's live, I got a message from a college friend of mine who was just so moved by the experience that it actually caused her to take a step. And that's what we're about. We're about a space to encourage, to empower, and to inspire people to own their story. So here's our What's Your Story highlight. And as you're hearing this, if it moves you, go ahead and drop an emoji and just show support to this person. So our What's Your Story highlight today is coming from Raquel. And this is what she sent me. She said, Leilani, sharing my story with some people and it getting diminished had me believing my story was not good enough to be shared, that my story wasn't worth it. It overshadowed all the positive feedback I did receive when I decided to share my child loss experience. I let the few negative comments overshadow the messages of love and the messages of people opening up to me about how they had gone through the same thing. What I did was shut down. I pent all that emotion up and tried to act normal. But what happened was that my health took a big hit and I didn't even know it. I'm still healing and I realized that I need to speak more. I can't let it stay pent up. Healing doesn't happen on my own. A community that supports you and prays with you is needed. I don't need to carry that load alone. I need to give it fully to God and stop trying to control the narrative. I need to give God the driver's seat and trust his directions. Trusting his plan is going to be better than anything I've ever dreamed of. I'm typing this statement up and putting it on my mirror as a daily reminder. Guys, Whew, when I got that message this week, I got goosebumps because it just shows how God was able to use Kara's story to help someone who had a completely different story, and it inspired her to actually look at her own story and say, I've been hiding this. I've been keeping this in. I've been keeping it pent up, and it's been affecting me. It's actually been hurting me, and I am done with that. And so I wanted to talk today, before we bring out Christal and Avrey, I just wanted to remind you that so many of us have had experiences where we believe that they are better left untold. We believe that it's better to keep them hidden on the shelf, on the closet. If we can't see it, if we don't have to deal with it, then we don't get to experience all the pain or everything that comes with it. But I need to remind you today that that is a lie. That is a lie. The analogy I like to use is the analogy of a refrigerator. How many of you have ever had something spoil in your fridge? If you had, give me a hand raise in the comments. I have to admit, I've had a few things spoil in my refrigerator. But when something spoils in the back of the refrigerator, it's been there for a long time, and it's been decaying and dying for a long time. But it's not until it starts to smell that you recognize that there's something that you have overlooked. You open the fridge and you just get this woof of stank, okay? And you start going through your fridge and you literally have to smell every item of food because you are like, I don't know what it is, but something in this refrigerator is dead and it's noticeably not alive. So, but you have to go through each thing and you have to empty out your refrigerator. You have to clean it all out to identify what in your refrigerator was spoiled. The same thing happens when we decide to put away and hide the things in our lives that we don't want to face, that are hard to face, that cause us a discomfort. What ends up happening is that we think that because it's hidden and out of view, that no one else sees it, so we're okay. But that thing is not affecting us. But the reality is that thing is like that spoiled item in your refrigerator. It is beginning to allow the stank odor to permeate everything else that's in your refrigerator, that's in your life. And so what starts to happen is that this thing that you're hiding or that you're trying not to address starts to affect every single part of your life, your physical, your mental, your emotional health, the way you interact with people, the walls that you put up, the relationships, the toxic relationships you get into, the relationships you don't get into, the support you seek, the support you do not seek. And so just like our highlight, I just want to say to Raquel, you are so brave. You are so brave for deciding that it was time. It was time to remove the things from the refrigerator, to bring it out, to clean it up, and to say, no, this doesn't define me. This situation doesn't define me. But in order for me to heal, in order for me to not let it affect my health anymore, I need to expose it. I need to bring it to light, no matter what others say, think, or do. Do you hear me? Don't, yes, Derek Williams. Don't, somebody say stank odor, okay? It permeates everything. It permeates our lives. And so I'm so proud of Raquel for deciding that it was time for her to step out. It was time for her to share. It was time for her to not let this thing keep her down and keep her from healing. Now, the healing process is difficult, but it's worth it. Did you guys know? You know me, I'd be looking at all the brain and the physiological stuff because it's so interesting. Did you know that when we experience trauma, so when we experience anything in our lives where our body's limit is where we overstress ourselves, right? That could be a traumatic experience, something negative, something that your body can't handle, that energy is stored in our tissues and in our muscles. Did you know that literally the tissues that surround your organs store up that stress, that your muscles store up that stress? And then what happens? as a result of that, if you don't release it, what we do is we hide it. If we hide it and continue to live life not checking our trauma and our hurt, it starts to actually affect our body. We start getting sick. All right. We start experiencing pain, physical pain. We start to eventually, what ends up happening is that our organs start disconnecting from our brain. And that's where disease comes. Guys, because we rather hide our trauma because it hurts versus actually step in front of, allow it to be placed in front of us so that we can deal with it. Now, I'm not suggesting that you just literally share your negative experiences or your story or your trauma with just anyone. You need to find a safe space to do that. Now, a couple things that I would suggest, you write it out. Write out your story. If you've been hiding it, the box is dusty, it's sitting on the shelf, you walk by it every day, but you dare not open it up. Take some time in some quiet space and write it out. The other thing I would suggest is don't be afraid to go see someone. Find a therapist or a counselor who can help guide you through unboxing that hurt. Because what we're doing instead is that we're allowing our bodies to take the brunt of the trauma, and it's literally killing us. And so I just want to, again, just praise Raquel for the brave step that she took towards walking towards owning her story, confronting it, and not letting it take over the rest of her life. Yes, Glady, be mindful of oversharing. Verbal diarrhea doesn't absolutely. And I think more importantly, you want to find someone that is willing to be willing to hear you. Here's the reality. Sometimes when we share, we're left feeling vulnerable. And that could be a very dangerous place. So I want you to find a safe space. All right. Safe space. Yes. Hiding trauma causes trauma. Yes, Adrian. Sorry. There was a quote I wanted to read, but I do not have it. So I'm just going to share it later on. But pretty much the idea of hiding our trauma and our bodies absorbing it allow us to constantly be re-traumatized by the thing unconsciously. And so I just want to encourage you guys, as you are knowing and owning your stories so that you can share your stories, make sure that we are taking the time to face those stories in a safe space. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring Christal and Avrey on so that we can go ahead and hear their story. Christal, Avrey, so good to see you guys. Can you hear me? Are we good?
Yes, we are.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited that I could be here with you guys. Kathleen, the body keeps a score for sure. Listen, anyway, we could talk about that for forever, but I want to focus here. So guys, in the comments, go ahead and send your love for Christal and Avrey. They're getting ready to do a difficult thing. They're getting ready to share their story. And I just want to thank you guys first, before I have you introduce yourselves, for taking that step in bravery. I know this is not easy. I know that it comes with some pain, and it's exactly what we're talking about, right? The idea of having to put it outside of yourself brings back some of those emotions. But what you're doing is healing. What you're doing is transformative. What you're doing is powerful, not just for you, but for the people who need it, who are watching and tuning in and need it. Yes, they are extremely brave. So I want to just go ahead and have you guys introduce yourself as we're getting some hellos in here. Tell us who you guys are and what you guys do.
Well, my name is Avrey Anderson. I'm a pastor. I serve in a district in North Carolina, 2 churches, and I'm from Toronto, Toronto born and raised. And yeah, I'm happy to be here tonight.
Yes, I'm Christal. I am originally from the Bronx. I am now an assistant content manager at a small store. Whoop, whoop. Also a content creator. My kids have a YouTube channel, Kids Cash Agency. Yeah.
Yes. We'll have to drop those links at the end. Yes. Look at the Toronto fam. Yes.
That's right.
So as you guys continue to drop it, here's what I want to do before we jump into the story. You guys who are watching and listening, here's what I need from you as they're sharing their story. If something moves you, if something encourages you, I want you to drop it in the chat. If as you're hearing their story, send them hugs, send them love through an emoji or through a verbal word of affirmation, because this is real. This is a real thing, and so I'm just excited to have you guys on. You have some Bronx folks, some New Yorkers. There we go.
Oh boy.
Listen, I'm from New Jersey, so I'll be trying to, do the accent a little bit here and there. It's so funny. But anyway, guys, we're going to just go ahead and jump right in. So Christal and Avrey, what's your story?
Well, the funny thing is, as you were praying right before we got started, I remember that this whole journey started right after I asked God for more faith.
Wow.
Do you remember that? Yeah, do you remember that? I had just quit my job. I remember I did a whole video about it. And then literally the month later, we found out we were pregnant with Zion. And Avrey also did a move of faith because he was at the seminary at Andrews and felt called to move to Maryland to continue his studies. And we packed up and we moved. And we had talked about having, because we already had Eden. She was about 11 months when I found out I was pregnant with Zion. And me and my sister are really close in age. So I thought it was, amazing. We had no trouble getting pregnant. And we were excited. And I really did not expect anything to go wrong. We had no trouble at all from the conception throughout the whole pregnancy. And after we moved to Maryland, I remember going to a midwife, and she took the vitals. She said everything was fine. She asked me about, my lifestyle routine. I told her I was exercising. I was, doing all the things, right? Like eating healthy, exercising, all the things. And she was like, wow, this is like the perfect pregnancy. That's Wednesday. Friday morning, I wake up, and when I tell you, I remember that when I was pregnant, it was during the World Series, like the, like the World Cup. Is that what it's called? The World Cup, the soccer game.
Soccer, okay.
Yeah, and she was as I always heard people tell me that those are the most exciting games in the world, that they're the most energetic, and I'm like, this is a World Cup baby, because she did not stop moving, right? Like it was just like waves in my stomach, always kicking, always moving. She was so excited, And this one morning I woke up and she wasn't moving. And I was just like, okay, that's weird. I start poking her.
Right.
Tell Avrey's like, well, call the midwife. I call my midwife. They're like, well, drink something, lay down, like see if you can feel her. And, if you don't, then come in. So I ate something, I drank something, I laid down on my side and nothing. And I was telling Avrey, like, she's not moving, which is so weird, it's not like her.
Right.
And Avrey was like, well, if something's wrong, we're just going to go straight to the hospital. It doesn't make sense to go to the midwife and then they're going to send us to the hospital anyways. He's like, let's go straight there. So we go to the hospital and they do an ultrasound. And I remember I turned and I looked at the ultrasound and I just saw her like floating in my sac. She wasn't moving. And at that moment I knew. And I just turned away and I wasn't looking. And I remember Avrey asked the tech. You asked the tech. I was like, Avrey asked, he said, is something wrong? And she was just like, we're going to get the doctor.
Wow.
And then the doctor comes in and she comes in and she's just like, I'm so sorry. And we immediately start crying. And in Maryland, we brought Eden with us because we did have family in the area, but we thought it was just going to be, a quick doctor's check. They're going to tell us everything. We're going to go home. But that was not the case. And we started crying. And I remember Eden was like, 11, 12, no, she was a little bit older then. She was a little bit over a year at that point.
Yeah.
And she was just like rubbing us and taking tissues and wiping our eyes, hugging us. She didn't really understand what was going on, but you know, like her little heart was, you know, was there for us.
She could see
Yeah.
and feel that something was off.
Yeah. And then, you know, the doctor told us, you know, you're going to have to deliver the baby. We're going to have to induce you. Can you come in tomorrow? And the whole thing was just like, I don't know how to describe the feeling. Like you feel like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just, it's so painful, you know, like it's disbelief, especially from going from the fact that the doctor a few days before had said everything was perfect to now, sorry, you know, your she died. So we came back on Friday. I called my mom up. My mom and my sister came up to stay with Eden while we went through the process. And we delivered her, they induced me and we delivered her Friday morning? Sabbath morning.
Yeah.
And we delivered her Sabbath morning. She was beautiful. She was beautiful. Sorry, am I?
That's okay.
Yeah, she was beautiful. She was 21 inches long. She was gonna be tall.
Baby, yeah.
Yeah, she was
Like
4 pounds. Yeah, definitely. She was gonna be tall. But it was just a really painful experience, especially having to deliver her. And I remember holding her and praying over her, asking God for a miracle, you know. And there were a lot of people, I think, in those moments who really were the hands of God for us. Our nurses were amazing.
Yeah, the whole staff.
Yeah, they were very caring, and they were crying with us. Yeah, they were there for us. So to all the nurses out there, thank you guys for what you do.
And a quick note about that is they didn't know us. This wasn't the staff that was supposed to birth our baby either. So they had no history of who we were. They had no idea who we were. And they were so supportive and so caring and, you know, so intentional about how they interacted with us. And, you know, I'm truly grateful to that staff, even to this day, you know, because they didn't have to be that caring. You know, they didn't have to show any type of support. And a funny thing is the day that we had found out, they had kind of just taken Eden and like took care of her while we were in that moment. And they were so amazed at how cheerful and how loving Eden was. And, you know, that just left an impression on them. So, you know, to those who are in the medical field, you know, I tip my hat off to you guys because, you know, there are a lot of things that you don't have to do, but you do it anyway because you care for people.
Yeah. I'll definitely say that like a lot of people would show up and just like I've heard this before, but I really appreciate the people who didn't really ask us what we needed, but just called and said, "Hey, I'm stopping at Chipotle. What you guys want?" You know, like I remember my cousin-in-law Jill was like such a ride or die. She bought some like mango nectar because I couldn't really eat anything. She brought me some mango nectar to drink, and it was just, I don't know, it was amazing. To this day, mango nectar has a special place in my heart.
It's those small things.
It is small things.
Yeah. I think sometimes people get caught up with, you know, they need to do something big. And if they can't do something big, they feel like they can't help. But it's something as small as just getting you something to drink that really, that just speaks volumes.
Yeah.
Yeah, God sent angels in human form.
Absolutely. Yeah, you see the hands of God even in terrible times, and I think that's kind of what, like, one of the beauty in such a dark moment is seeing God through other people. And then we didn't have any money to bury her, so we did a GoFundMe, and we made more than enough to bury her, which was another blessing, because you know, like, you know, we had to have a funeral, you know, she had to be funeralized. And that was something else that we were grateful for. And then afterwards, you know, that's when the darkness really sets in. It's not really, in the moment, it's still kind of, you know, you're going through and it's just a shock. You can't believe what happened, you know, what happened, like what went wrong. And I feel like afterwards, you know, The darkness really sets in. And I just remember feeling super depressed. I remember feeling super depressed and just mad at God. And I remember in my prayers, I would just, I don't know, I was so angry. And it was really difficult. I mean, then we had to deal with, people.
Yeah. So being in a situation like that really causes you to view relationships differently. And to kind of break it down, you have individuals who are there at the high points or the high moments, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
And they're there, they're very supportive. But however, after the moment has passed and, you're still dealing with those issues, those people move on as if nothing happened. And it's almost as if they forget.
Yeah.
And some people say insensitive things, not remembering that they were there in the room with us when we were grieving.
Wow.
And that was one of the toughest things. And I know for both of us, we were in a situation of being broken. Like, we were broken individuals, and it was hard for us to cope and to understand healthy friendships in that environment. And we took anything that happened or anything that we were a part of, we kind of looked it under the microscope, like, man, these people, they don't know what we're going through. And there's all these negative thoughts that we had towards people who they probably didn't even realize that we were going through those emotions. Yeah. But those are all the things that we were feeling. And, we took it to heart, a lot of the things that people said. Right. And especially for people who didn't know, because we had Eden, and, they would say things like, oh, when are you going to have your next kid? Or, when are you going to have another child? Not knowing that we had experienced something so traumatic in that process. And another thing that was hard for me was, at that time, I was on the path to trying to be a minister. Mm-hmm. And my first experience of a funeral was for my own child. Wow. And, that was something that was extremely difficult, and I asked God, like, why is this my, experience in true pastoral ministry? Mm-hmm. And, I had to study my way back into a relationship with God, because It was so difficult, and having those thoughts and those emotions and seeing other people happy about pastoral ministry, and I'm seeing the negative side of it, all of the things that all those feelings of grief and pain, and I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy that I had to do something because of my title. So just imagine I'm studying and thinking I got to do this again for somebody else, and those pain and the pain and all those feelings come up again. So it was tough for the both of us to deal with people who I don't want to say they were insensitive, because they didn't really know. Right. But for the ones who did, it really was painful to experience those comments, and we'd laugh about it when they'd ask us, but really it was really painful on the inside. Right. So, and even to this day, where people ask us like, oh, when are you going to have another son so you can even it out? And we're kind of like, well, no, we are, we're kind of done, and they can't accept it. And they're going back and forth with us. And it's like, man, if you only knew, if you only knew. But it's easier to deal with now because of the healing that we've been able to go through, and having those talks with each other, having our own talks with God personally and together, that we're able to be in a healthier space where we're able to have these conversations, where we're able to share and kind of pass those comments by and just kind of laugh to ourselves like, man, if they only knew, if they only.
And I would say, in regards to the darkness that came over me, I remember there was one time that I was, and this is where I say like things got really, really spiritual for me. There was one time I just got angry and like blacked out in anger. And then I remember I was standing in front of the mirror with my hand full of pills.
Wow.
And I don't remember how I got there. I don't remember pouring out the pills in my hand. And I was just like, whoa. And then I remember Avrey saw me and he flushed everything down the toilet. And I think Leilani had called you and I was just crying and I was just like, I don't know if like this, I don't know if this is postpartum depression. And that's the thing, like you, after delivering a baby, your body thinks that you have a child.
Right.
So you start going through all the symptoms. Your breast starts producing milk. Your hair you get that postpartum shedding and you get all these symptoms, but there's no baby. And it's so painful because you don't know what to do about it, and man, that was so bad. But I remember when I called you, Leilani, and I was like, didn't know what to do. I was just crying. I was grieving. And I was like, I think I have postpartum depression, I need to talk to a therapist. And I remember you stopped and you were like, let's pray. Mm-hmm. You prayed. And it was like the darkness left. And I think in talking to God about this whole situation, I think that's when the healing really started. Then you connected me with Gianna Snell, who had also had multiple loss of children. And I don't even remember her saying much. I remember just talking and telling her my story. And that really also helped me heal even more, just being able to share and kind of like what you're doing here, having a platform for people to tell their stories. There's something so healing about it, about talking about prayer. And I remember I started to talk to God. And one of the things and this is going to be controversial, but I remember that I was dropping F-bombs in my prayer, legit cursing, upset, angry.
Right.
And I remember like apologizing, like, oh, okay, because you're taught you gotta be,
right.
God will strike you down with lightning.
Yeah.
And I remember the Holy Spirit saying, just talk to me. I can handle your curses. I can handle it. I'm not gonna dissolve or turn it, I'm not gonna strike you with lightning. I can handle everything that you have. Just come to me and be real with me about the way you're feeling. Yes. And I think that's really what helped me to find healing, is that having those really real conversations with God.
Yes.
I don't feel like talking to you. I don't feel like worshiping you. I don't like you. That whole, like, just being completely transparent. How could you be a good God and do this? How could you let this happen? Yeah. There's so many people who don't even want their kids that are having babies, and just having those real conversations with God. I also think that not isolating myself when I was broken, talking to friends, calling them. I had a friend that whenever Avrey would go play basketball, she would just come over and just hang out with me. So I wouldn't be alone. And would literally just be there. We wouldn't talk about anything. We were just hanging out until Avrey came home and she had like a full-time job and a kid.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm so, it's crazy because, I had the privilege of being there alongside part of your journey, all of that journey with you guys. And I remember the exact place. We were in Toronto when you called us. You called us and you guys were in the hospital to tell us. And I remember just crying. I just couldn't like compute it. Like my brain couldn't, like just a couple days ago, like you said, right? Everything was fine, and it's just all of a sudden, things changed. And Christal and Avrey, I appreciate you guys so much for sharing the reality of what we experience in dark times, because so many people are afraid to be honest about the fact that you question God. Like you get upset, and absolutely, Sarah, we think God is intimidated by our F-bombs, but his shoulders are strong enough. And here's what people forget is that, you can't hide it from God, right? We think that we're by not praying what we really feel, that we're hiding it from God, but he knows the things we haven't even thought of. And so your ability to recognize first and foremost, because I want to, and I'll let you finish, but I don't want to dismiss the fact that you started this by saying, you started by praying about faith. And when you called me that day and you were like, I don't know, I don't want to live, right? It was like, this is spiritual. This is so much more than, yes, the grief is real. Yes, the darkness is real. Yes, that those feelings of not wanting to live are real. But this is also spiritual warfare. And it has to be, you have to defeat it with both, right? You have to build community. You have to get it out. You have to talk to someone. You have to develop coping mechanisms and tools. But you need God. Right?
Yeah.
And your ability to kind of be honest and real with God is crazy, because it was you needed to expose yourself to him in order for him to start to heal you. And man, so many of us stay stuck in our mess because we're afraid to expose ourselves. We're afraid for people either to see us in that way or to even hear us say what we think, So anyway, sorry, I didn't want to. Man.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that's one thing that I'm grateful for, that God can handle the dirtiest, darkest parts of us, like, yes. We don't got to filter things for God, Mm-hmm. And I remember the other thing was that connection led to the next part of healing for me, which is when the Holy Spirit kept telling me to call a friend, Kathleen. And, I didn't want to, because I'm like, God, what Kathleen got to say to me, Jesus? Like, what?
Listen, don't ask that question. Kathleen.
I was like, what does she got to say to me? And I remember Avrey had gone away to pick up something in a car in Michigan. And I had decided to go to my sister. And I was driving on the highway, and Kathleen called me, right? Because I ain't got nowhere to go. I'm driving.
Right.
We start talking, and I'm telling her, like, I felt like the Holy Spirit was trying to, tell me to call you. And she's like, oh, I don't know why. I'm sorry. I don't really have anything. And I'm just like, oh, that sounds like God, right? Like, right, God, you're going to lead me to this dead end. Here we go again.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Then we start talking, and she starts telling me this story about this experience she had. I don't remember all the details. Kathleen, if you're on the chat, you can add it in. But pretty much she had like this spiritual experience where her mom started praying over her and her neck started getting hot. And it was just like really crazy. And I will never forget. It was almost as if like time was suspended and God had taken me to another realm. Because in that moment it clicked. This is spiritual. This is spiritual. And it was like God had said to me, like, Christal, I did not take your daughter from you. He's like, I did not kill her. I allowed this to happen so that you can see how much the enemy hates you and how far he's willing to go to destroy you.
Wow.
And and in that moment, in that moment, I felt so much.
Apologize.
I felt so much love. I can't even explain it. And he was like, you will see her again. He's like, I promise you, you will see her again. And he was like, but I need you to know how serious this is. This is not a game. This is life and death. This is not a game. And he was like, but you will see her again. And I think that was another experience that I had that really helped in the healing process. In the healing process for me, just, answering those questions. A lot of times, we think that, like, I remember this sermon that Avrey preached about knowing who your real enemy is. And he used the analogy of the story from the story To Kill Him. What is it? The Mocking. I can't remember the name of the movie. It's Hunger Games.
Hunger Games.
Hunger Games. And in the second or third, I don't remember which movie it is.
The third one.
a third movie, they're causing the uprising, and they have a plan. She's back in the games, and she's about to shoot another contestant, and the person shouts at her, "Remember who the real enemy is," and she shoots the dome, and the dome goes down. Yeah. And I think a lot of times, especially in this climate, we're willing to pick fights. And, we think the police are the enemies and racists are enemies and Trump is the enemy. But God's like, no, like, that's not the enemy. The devil is the enemy. And this is all spiritual.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times we lose sight of that. And that was kind of like a moment that God kind of brought everything in perspective. And it really grounds me to this day to remember, like, what our purpose is on earth and what we need to do. So that was,
and also it was also heavy because in that moment we were probably at our lowest point, or one of our lowest points financially. Even because I was in school, so that was another thing. I still had to do my studies through all of this, and it was just a lot. So it was almost as if the devil was like, well, they're really low right now. Let me just tip them over the edge.
Wow.
And I had suffered with, depression and suicide and all that, suicidal thoughts. So it would have been easy for me to have slipped back into that. Wow. And, through that whole experience, I truly appreciate those who prayed for us, my parents, my family, Christal's family, because, if it wasn't for the support, both of us might not have been sitting here right now, to be honest with you. Mercy. So I think that, we truly have to understand the lullaby that the devil sings to us. We have these experiences, we lose somebody, we have a traumatic experience where we realize, we need to get back to God.
Yeah.
And we're good for like 3-4 weeks, a month, 6 months. But then we slowly slip back to our old habits and our old way of thinking. And if anything that anybody's out there listening to, and I know this is Pastor speaking now, but understand that the devil wants for us to be the same. He doesn't want us to change. He doesn't want us to alter our behaviors. Yep. He doesn't want us to succeed. So in those moments where you realize, where you have that light bulb moment, when you have that thought, like, the life that I'm living right now is not right. It's not pleasing to God. Stay on track with that thought. Don't let it be diminished. Don't let people around you who are comfortable with the way that they're living influence your life. Because at the ending of the day, it's us and God. It's not going to be us and our friends and our posse and our homies that are going to be next to us.
Right.
It's going to be us and God. So we have to realize the seriousness in that moment that you feel, the pain that you feel, and you're like, God, I need to see my loved ones again. I need to see this person again. Hold on to that.
Yeah.
Don't let it go. Let it be the driving force so that you can, that hope that we have, the hope that we talk about. It's not something that's fake. It's real.
It's real.
So hold on to it and work towards that, because if you don't, who knows where you might end up. So,
well, definitely in bondage. The imagery you used, Avrey, is so powerful, because like I didn't even, the thought lullaby hit me, and then she verbalized it, right? A lullaby is used to be put to sleep. And it's almost like that's what the enemy, like you said, right? It's what the enemy uses to keep us in a state of bondage instead of freedom, where we are already promised freedom in Christ,
right.
But we allow ourselves to stay in bondage. Wow, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Talk about
and I was going to say God's mercy is so good, because when I think about, we lost Zion on August 31st, and I had Matea on September 3rd, which is only 3 days after that. And I had Judah on July 28th, which is right before that. So it's like my new children are kind of like sandwiched in between this great grief. And now for August 31st, we have this thing that we call Family Day. And on the day that, we gave birth to her, we do something together as a family. It's movie night. We tell each other how much we love us. And it's more of a celebration.
And the kids look forward to it.
Yeah, they love it. Yeah, family day.
I love that you do that, because I think there's this misconception that, when we lose a loved one, that it's not okay to honor that memory or honor that experience. But I think it's so powerful that you guys are able to not only do that for your own selves, right, to continue to heal, but also for your children, like the fact that they are able to take witness of, they'll never be able to remember or know how it was, but they can see where God has brought you, right? And it's something that you'll continue to be able to share with them as they get older, right? And as they grow, it'll forever be a part of kind of, an experience how God brought you through one of the most difficult times in your life. I want to highlight this because Rose, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for your transparency. And we're going to answer this at actually, you know what? Let's answer this after. So I'll come back to you, Rose, but Avrey and Christal, we could be on here forever just delving into some of these the things that you experienced, but I just want to highlight that even in the darkest moments, you guys experienced hope by being able to bring yourselves before Christ as you were, with the support of others, and being able to kind of share your story and be open about that allowed for some of this healing to take place. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of, for the first time that you ever shared from a place of healing, I'll say, right? What kind of things did you have to overcome? Part of this experience is to help others say, well, I want to share my story, but I'm scared, or I'm nervous about how people are going to react. How did you guys overcome that? What kind of things did you have to navigate? And I'll put the question here.
Well, I know for me, personally, it's that being completely transparent and, being her husband and being the man in this marriage, you have two things that go through your mind. The first thing is, as a man, you're solution based. You're trying to solve a problem. You're trying to, help your mate, but you're not able to help them because this is something that they've experienced. And because it was in a pregnancy, because the child was in her, it's a whole entirely different experience for me. And it's hard to say, hey, well, you need to express this feeling and this emotion when I don't know half of what she was going through. I mean, she woke up every day with Zion, moving inside of her. She was having those experiences whenever she ate, the kicks, the everything. I didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
It was completely external of myself. So I didn't know her as much as Christal did. So there's a lot of feelings of, I don't want to say resentment, but it was kind of resentment because I didn't have as strong as a feeling as she did,
Right.
but I was still experiencing it because I was a part of it, part of her. So getting past those feelings and understanding that my feelings were still valid, even though it wasn't my experience, was something that took a lot of time for me to understand.
Yeah.
And I know that for a lot of men, we're taught to not be emotional. We're taught to not show our feelings or wear it on our sleeves. But in this moment, I realized that that's something definitely that you have to explore if you want to be healed. Anyway, I know some guys, they don't care to get to that place. But if you want to be a better husband, to be a better spouse, you have to explore those feelings. So it took a lot of journaling. I'm an avid journaler, so I love to write. So it took a lot of, writing and a lot of self-reflection to even understand why I felt the way that I felt and why it was so difficult to even open up to Christal, because we both grieve differently. And that was even difficult in our marriage as well. So it took a lot to get to that place to even share.
Yeah, I would say that. And speaking of grieving, differently. Like sometimes he didn't have anything to give me. You know what I mean? Like you're going to someone who, you know, you expect your husband to be your support and help you out, but he had nothing to give me. And I was just a ball of emotions and and he's just like stone cold. And it would just make me feel worse. And it's like, but I can't be mad at him because he's feeling his own grief.
Yes.
You know? But I know that I had to tell my story because I knew that there was freedom in it, if that makes sense. Like there's freedom in sharing what God has done. The Bible says we were overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony.
Yes.
And I think it was just something that not looking at it was, I didn't do it for anyone else but me. That may seem selfish, but I wasn't concerned about what people were going to say. It was like, this is something that I have to, like my pregnancy wasn't a secret. Right. You know, I didn't want people to come up to me afterwards and be like, oh, what happened to the baby, and go through all of that. So I'm like, let me just, you know, let me share what happened. Let me talk about, you know, where God has brought me from. And of course you're nervous at first. You're scared about what people are going to say. And after you share, you feel completely empty. Like, you know, like you feel naked, like, okay, expose myself. But,
like, what did I just do?
Yeah. But I also felt like it had to be done because I had to, kind of like closure, you know, like no secrets. I didn't want to hide. I wasn't ashamed. And also I realized that so many people don't tell this story. It happens so often. There's so many women who lose children. And I feel like as women, we feel like it's shameful, as if there's something that we did wrong, or that we're not good enough and we're not strong enough. And, you know, we're not made to be a mother.
Or I wasn't far along enough, right?
I
mean, it's actually, the statistics are actually 1 in 3. 1 in 3 women will experience a miscarriage or the loss of a child while pregnant in their lifetime. 1 in 3.
Yeah.
And so many people go without sharing their experience because they, like you said, right? They feel like their shame. You feel like your body let you down. I'm not good enough, right?
Mm-hmm. And there was something that God had said to me in one of my prayer moments as well, which I think was really powerful. And I prayed. I was like, God, why did you even make her? Wow. Like, if you knew I was going to lose her, why even allow me to get pregnant? And God said something to me for the fact of, you're looking at this temporary earth. He was like, I made her for eternity. Like, I loved her so much that I had to create her so that not so she could exist in this earth, but when I come again, I want her to be there. And that was just so powerful for me because at the end of the day, even if your child was 2 weeks old, God knew them before he formed them. And he made them for eternity. So,
that is so freeing for someone to hear and so healing, because here's the reality. I was telling this to Adrian. When we experience loss in our life, you feel so alone because only you can bear that by yourself. Like, you know, people on the outside know that it's happened and they can support as much, but you have to go through that darkness by yourself. You have to go through the struggle by yourself. You have to heal, right? And for God to say to you that I needed her in eternity, and so I needed to create her. Wow. Like, like, I mean, how much does that not show God's love, right? For you, for her, for your family. Ooh, my goodness. And Avrey, I just want to thank you so much for speaking from your perspective, because a lot of times the women, if they even get to share their story, they share it, but we don't hear from the husbands, right? We don't hear how it affected, how it affected you as a man, and I don't want to minimize the fact that you experienced that loss just as much, right? And that the reality is that that I think a lot of husbands end up taking the, okay, I'm just gonna be there for her, instead of saying like, no, like I have to heal from this trauma too. Like this happened to me as well, you know. So thank you for being vulnerable. What has sharing your guys' story, what it has inspired you to do?
Wow, I know for me, it's in that moment with God when I was in the car and God kind of told me like, this is the enemy who did this. Right. For me, it's like, okay, it really helped me refocus. Like, okay, Satan, I'm coming for your kingdom. Like legit, God, whatever talents and gifts you give me to do and however you tell me to use that, I'm not gonna lose focus of who the real enemy is and what my goal is to getting into the kingdom and taking as many people with me as I can.
Determined, like
yeah, like yeah.
For me, sharing my story has inspired me to be, more transparent, especially in my spirituality. I think that for a lot of people, our spirituality is personal, but because we all are affected by sin, we all go through the same problems, the same things, and we don't share it. We don't realize that there's other people that are next to us that are experiencing the same pain or the same story, or similar stories, I should say. So, I'm more intentional, and definitely more honest with myself with where I'm at spiritually with God. They're I call them spiritual check-ins, where, you gotta make sure you take that time to just ask God, like, hey, where am I right now? Where are we? Are we on good terms? Are we on bad terms? What do I need to get back to that place where, we're walking together as opposed to walking behind you? So there are a lot of things that came out of the story. I was able to go on to be a pastor and to be able to share our story to our congregation, and that opened up a well of people who, they didn't know that other people experienced the same thing, and those emotions and those thoughts. So sharing your story is more, as she said, it was for her, but it's also just as much for other people who are out there who then realize that, hey, I'm not alone. I'm really not alone. So you can now take those steps and get that healing so that you can share your story with others so that you can help someone else.
Thank you guys so much. Look, I just want to highlight these two comments. Derek says, yo, you're literally reigniting the desire for ministry in me. Thank you. Derek, I just want to speak over your life because you know that you have a powerful anointing from God.
Oh, yeah.
So I pray that the Holy Spirit will move you to be in ministry again, because brother, it's where you need to be. And then there was one other I wanted to highlight because I think it's important so that you guys know understand the impact of your story. Edwidge says, you guys hit on so many points tonight, how even strong Christians can struggle with vulnerability, difficulty expressing emotions, loneliness, insensitivity, suicidal ideation, anger, and confusion. This resonated more than you know. Thanks for sharing. Absolutely. And that's, at the end of the day, that is what it's about, right? It's about allowing your story to sharing your story allows you to free yourself and allows God to heal it so that then you can help transform others. And you guys have done just that. Right before we
Can
go.
I say something?
Yes,
real quick?
go for it.
I just want to say that even though we share a story and your story may be similar, there are certain people that have been assigned to your voice. And until you start telling your story, they will not get the healing that they're getting because you refuse to speak. So don't think that because we talk about loss that we have the whole territory covered.
Yeah.
Yep.
Speak up.
Yeah. Share your story.
Can you say that again, please? Pastoress. Can you say that again?
I know, right?
It's that there are people that are assigned to your voice.
Yes.
So to share your story.
Wow. Absolutely. Thank you for saying that, because someone needed to hear that. I just want to answer this last question and then we'll go ahead and end here. But Rose had this question. I think this as I know friends who have had this question. So, how did you guys cope with learning of others being pregnant and then eventually being pregnant again with your next child?
I say that you need to protect your space.
Yep.
You don't need to save face for nobody.
Yeah.
If you are not in the place to be around pregnant people or be around newborns, then by all means, don't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, protect your space, protect your healing. If you, even if you need to stay off social media for a while. There was a friend who had a daughter who had the same name as my child that I lost. Her name was Zion. I stayed clear. Clear. It was too much. It was too much. And even if I watch a show where it looks like someone's going to lose a baby, no, we changing the channel.
Yeah.
Triggering.
I'll usually check in and be like, are you good?
Yeah.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely real. And I think too many people feel bad about, feel like they have to put up a front, like, oh no, it's okay. No, like, it's okay to need to protect your space. And I absolutely agree. I love that. Great courage. Enough love. Arthur.
That's my dad.
Can I tell you, Avrey's dad is like ride or die, okay?
Yeah.
Everywhere Avrey is, he is. I appreciate you, Mr. Anderson. You the best, Dad. But guys, again, and it's been resonated in the comments. I honestly just want to thank you for your transparency and your authenticity and your genuine spirit. I think that everyone who's hearing, and not just everyone who was here tonight who have heard, but those who are going to hear are going to be able to move forward in healing because of your story, because of how God helped you, because of how you were able to be real and honest with your experience. And so thank you so much for being so brave and courageous with us tonight, and for it being okay to not be okay. We appreciate you, and I know that God is going to continue to allow your ministry to grow because you've committed yourself to Him and you've allowed Him to take the lead in your life. So thank you again so much, Christal and Avrey. Send them your love. Thank you for sharing your story with us. We'll keep getting those in, but I'm going to send them back, and I'll chat with you guys after. Wow. Listen, like I said before, Christal and Avrey are great friends of mine, and it's just been so beautiful to see how they've grown and how God has continued to use them and develop them. It was absolutely powerful. And so thank you guys so much. Look here, Sarah, you are aiding me moving forward in my healing right now. This was not a fluke. I clicked on this by accident while we were driving. God knows exactly, Sarah, what you need when you need it. And so continue to trust in Him for your healing. Guys, I just want to thank you so much for tuning in tonight. God was present. God was here. And I know that He'll continue to heal you as you go through your experiences. I just want to remind you guys that next week we'll be jumping on again live at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern with Leah Andrade. And she'll be talking about just her journey. She was abandoned by her mother at a very young age, and that led her through a journey of toxic relationships and experiences that brought her to the end of herself. And it wasn't until she was at the end of herself that she was able to kind of leave it to God and start changing and transforming. So I can't wait to see you next week. I hope that tonight you have been inspired to know, own, and share your story. And don't forget, if you have shared your story or this has moved you to share your story, go ahead and send me a direct message, because I want to highlight you. I want to celebrate you next week. So much healing, so many tears. Don't forget, you can watch us on Facebook Live or on YouTube at What's Your Story, so you can like or subscribe to continue to connect with us as we give people an opportunity to share their story. Deidre, I'm so glad that you're here, girl. Thank you for supporting. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming. I will see you guys next week, 7 p.m., 8 p.m. For What's Your Story. And as always, be inspired to know, own, and share your story. See you guys. Bye.